Terrance, I think you put this in the notes here about Stackwell Fintech, new startup. So
Yeah.
why
So
don't you go ahead and tell us about this? I read this and I actually have a lot to say on this one because this is my wheelhouse here.
all right. Well, so Stackwell is a new financial tech, which is what FinTech stands for. It's a startup that aims to narrow the racial wealth gap with, I call it, done for you investment portfolios. So this kind of speaks to that audience that knows that stock market is out there, knows it's important, but similar to how we were just talking about technology, you ask somebody about the stock market, they're like, "Hey, I don't know anything about that stock market stuff." So Stackwell looks to answer or to resolve those issues of people not knowing that much about stock market by creating this mobile app that gives you education about the stock market, and two, it allows folks to invest without directly having to pick individual stocks, because you talk about charting and you're talking about businesses and you're talking about a whole bunch of numbers that may scare some people off. But the way Stackwell does it is they have these automated or robo portfolios that if you answer some questions, the platform learns a little bit about you, and it presents these portfolios that users can invest in, and that portfolio then invests in those different companies, whether it be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, things of that nature. And that gets you started into investing. Like we mentioned the previous show with our host or with our guest, one of the things she mentioned was, we have no longer the time to say, hey, this is something that I'm not really into, or this is not something that I may, or let me look into it. That answer. We're running out of time to not get into closing the wealth gap, because it's not getting any bigger. I'm sorry, it's not getting any smaller. As a matter of fact, it's getting bigger. Since civil rights movement, things of that nature. And I think it would behoove anybody to get more involved in the stock market, and this Stackwell Capital app does just that. Like I mentioned, education and getting people actually investing without having to do that legwork, which everybody should do, but getting you involved in creating wealth by just giving you some exposure to the stock market is leaps and bounds over what people are doing now. And I think that's the whole reason behind Stackwell. So I just wanted to bring it up because, again, like I said, it continues that conversation about, people not being aware, and people maybe even being put off by when you get into the minutia of stock market. It just makes it a whole lot easier to get more involved to actually build wealth, which is what we need in our community specifically.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I thought about you told a story, Terrance, when we were having that Bitcoin conversation about telling one of your family members, and they were like, "Can you do it for me?" You know what I mean? It's just like, no, I can't. So I think this will go a long way to eliminate the need, for people to feel unempowered, if that's a word, to go and do these kind of things. And I think once you get into it, you kind of will take some initiative on your own eventually, because it's your money. So you want to see where it's going and what's happening with it. I think people will, but it's just that initial step, because, when you think about investing in the stock market, it's opening a brokerage account. Who should I go with? There's a bunch of them. Then there's brokerage fees, and then there's this, and then there's that, and then maybe I go with Robinhood, and there's no fee, and so it there's a lot of information to try to absorb all at once, just
to get in the game.
To buy one share of Apple or whatever. So the idea that this is making it kind of a one-stop shop and sort of investing 101 for people, I think is really good. It's coming out in beta next year, I think. I read in the article. So but the wait list is open right now, if anybody's interested. So definitely check out Stackwell. It's funny, I actually reached out on their Instagram I was like, I know it's last minute, but if we could get Trevor on the show today, it would be awesome. But nobody got back to me. So Trevor, if you're listening, we would love to have you come holler at us. I think it's a great idea and a great way to get some folks engaged in this process.
And that's the whole thing. Like you mentioned, get folks engaged. Once you get into it, you start to you may make a little change, and it
Mm-hmm.
may
Mm-hmm.
encourage you even more to actually look into it even more. And I give you a quick side story. My wife, her stepfather, he's retired within the past 10 15 years or so, and he's been sitting around the house not doing nothing really until slowly but surely he started to get into the stock market. So now he's gone from not getting into the stock market at all to hitting my wife up on the regular,
Okay.
hipping her to
This joke
you
of
know the,
trading penny stocks on the daily and whatnot.
right, and he's actually stepped it up to where he's realized the power in just making your money work for you. That's a beautiful thing when you can actually, the light bulb goes off like, hey,
Compounding.
right, hey, if I leave my money in the bank, more or less that could be the same amount of money forever, with the exception of a little bit of chump change interest they give you. But if I put my money someplace else, whether it be stocks, whether it be crypto, whether it be real estate, whatever the case may be, that money makes more money, and I really ain't got to do nothing outside of just
Mm-hmm.
make sure that I don't lose money. I think once people get into that, I think then, like I said, the light bulb goes off, and then before you know it, you got people calling you on the regular talking about, hey, did you see about this stock? Did you hear about this stock?
Now all of a sudden you E.F. Hutton and whatnot.
Exactly.
I'm not a mass savant by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know that 0.8% interest is less than 10% annualized returns in S&P 500 for
Mhm.
the history of it. Clearly there were two really, really bad years, but in the 100 years of it, it's been two really, really bad years of it. So one of the things that I, as I was reading through the story and reading about, Stackwell's, like, because here's my thought is, okay, how are you different, or what are you doing different? Because this is not a unique idea. There are other financial avenues that are very, very similar to what this, to what this program actually is. What's different? They're targeting it at African Americans. That is a
That's
guiding principle. It's like we're looking at a community that historically has been underserved by the financial industry. Going back to forever. We are going to do things that other companies are doing, but we're going to make sure that this particular demographic, we let them know that, hey, we're here. Here's how we're trying to help you. It kind of reminded me of what is that bank that Killer Mike
Greenwood.
started? Greenwood
Mhm.
Bank. I remember looking at that. What is different about this bank? Oh, it's an online bank. Very, very similar to other online banks. What are they doing? We are targeting, a particular demographic, in this case, African Americans, Latinos, who are generally just underserved and underrepresented in the financial industry, financial services industry. It's not about, that's not the case. I mean, it is the case. You can look at all kind of numbers that will show you this. So this is just a way to get in front of in front of a community, or in front of communities that have been, ignored or denied, for no reasons other than, the color of their skin. So that's what I wanted to try to, make sure, how is this different? Is it doing something different? No, it's just who they are marketing and targeting it to.
And they're taking the time to build that trust. And that's the
Right.
problem. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, that's why black folks ain't want to take the vaccine, because everybody talking about Tuskegee. You know what I mean? You have to take the time to build the trust in institutions that have historically wronged us for real. Like, not just, you can't have your money here, but okay, we're going to take all your money and keep it. And then when your city burned down, you can't get it back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we have legitimate,
Beef.
causes to be skeptical of all of these, of America, basically. So to, when you build a business that has trust building built in, to the mission, then I think that's when you can make some significant progress in a community. And I hopefully this is what this brother's trying to do, and Killer Mike and everybody else. It's just like you gotta earn that trust back.
And I want to address a question that I know folks are going to ask. Well, but do you really, it's 2021. Do you need to create something that is specifically for African Americans and Latinos?
Yes.
Do you have to do that? Can't you just use Robinhood? Can't you just use these other things that already exist? And the answer is No. This is the reason why these have been created. Now, I want to preface that. Can you go sign up a Robinhood account? You absolutely can, but Robinhood is not necessarily targeting this demographic who, for hundreds of years, has been disenfranchised in this country. And you have folks who may be a little, I don't trust that. I'm not going to go there. That's not what Robinhood is doing. We can go sign up accounts there. We absolutely can. But this company, Greenwood, as far as a bank, when they actually we're going to target this demographic. We are looking specifically here
because
anyone can get an account. This is where we're going.
Right, and because we have special needs, just like Stephanie mentioned, because of the history of the financial sector and how we've been, at the very least, just cast aside or ignored, but at the most, specifically excluded from. Right. and like Stephanie mentioned, that thing that companies like this do is they build trust, because again, we know they need to build that back. And specifically to Stackwell, they according to what we've read so far, again, because we don't know, because the app hasn't been publicly released yet, but according to what I've read, they're going to provide education.
That's the key.
That is the trust building that gets people in the door to the ultimate goal of building wealth. You can say, well, why, like you mentioned, Rob, why can't Black people use Robinhood or TD Ameritrade or anything like that? Well, yeah. So why haven't we? Why haven't we been doing that for all these years? If it's that simple and all we got to do is, well, why isn't it always the case? There's some underlying issue as to why the racial wealth gap is the way it is. And we need to one, call it what it is.
Right.
And two, take the time to build that trust back. And you can't just be like, oh, well, just take all your savings and throw it in this thing.
And right. And honestly, it may just be a point where, some Black folks just ain't gonna invest their money with some white folks. And right. And it is what it is, you know what I mean? And they're going to need somebody who looks like them to say, let me show you how this is done and educate you. And it may, be as fundamental as, let me take you by the hand and guide you through this process. Because sometimes that's what is required when you have such a visceral distrust and lack of knowledge about a particular part of our economy. Like sometimes you gotta go all the way back to the beginning and be like, we're gonna take this step by step and we're gonna get it together, and I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know. And I don't know of any non-POC institution, app, or otherwise that's doing that cares to do it, because they don't have to. You know what I mean? You got enough customers. You don't need to take a few Black folks by the hand and bring them along. So where does that leave us? And it leaves us with apps like this. So like I said, hopefully this will work out. I would be remiss though if I did not shout out my girl Ashley Fox. She has a program called Amplify, where she's doing largely the same thing. She focuses though a lot on passive income through dividend producing stocks. But she literally, has a whole community of people. She calls it the Wealth Builders community, where you get access to all this information and their app and everything else. So it's necessary. It's a necessary thing.